I don't mind saying it. When we were 25 people, we went to heads of terms because I did not enjoy that journey.
To sell the business.
To sell the business, yeah. It was not a lot of fun.
Today we were very fortunate to have Chris Potts from ITC Services as our guest. ITC Services are an IT managed service provider. They have scaled from foundation through to 7 million turnover, 1.5 million profit, 50 people, and very significantly, last year they raised investment from the Business Growth Fund. When you look back now, what was it you were getting wrong in trying to select those people or get that in place?
Didn't have that clearly defined mission. So people weren't sure what they were coming into work for.
So 10 years in, what size are you? About 1 million, you say, turnover-wise?
Yeah.
What changed?
There's no way we could grow beyond this point without having it. At some point or another, your knees are going to hurt and your hair's probably going to fall out and you're going to need an exit plan.
Running a search and recruitment business for high growth businesses, we are privileged to spend a lot of time with high growth leaders, and this podcast is about sharing their experiences. So, hi Chris, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So, as you know, hopefully you've seen some of the previous episodes of the podcast. So we're here to talk about your journey in business. It's the High Growth Leadership Podcast. So specifically, we are interested to hear about your journey over the last 20 years of growing ITC. ITC has obviously been in the business press recently because last year you finalised a deal with Business Growth Fund to take on additional investment. So we're really keen to hear about that, but also cover everything about your leadership style, your journey, the missteps along the way, the successes along the way, and hopefully people listening to this who want to be high growth leaders themselves can learn some lessons.
Nothing wrong with a few missteps along the way as well.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We wouldn't believe you said there weren't any. ITC. You can explain who you are, what you do, and for who a lot better than Simon and I can. So over to you. Could you tell us a little bit about what the business is today?
Yeah. So the proposition is really simple. We're a IT managed support provider. And everything you need to know is in the name. It's ITC is integrity, trust, communication. And the most important thing is service. That's how we proposition ourselves. Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, and then just going all the way back to the start of your time in the business, what was it that got you on the entrepreneurial road in the first place?
I think there's always been a little bit of something like that in the background, from washing cars as a business as a kid to, every single Del Boy wheeler dealer thing along the way, Not an educated chap, no university or anything like that behind, but I wouldn't say there wasn't a lot of learning involved in the whole journey. So I started out as an accountant of all things.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
A little bit of steering from parents on that one as opposed to journey. And I remember doing an audit on a managed service provider and going, I like a bit of this model that's in here because there's a business you could see where you could grow, where you always weren't chasing, the next project. It was something where you could build long-term relationships with clients, work month in, month out with those businesses, ultimately, so everyone grows together,
But I guess even for people who've got a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit and have demonstrated it earlier in life and then having some visibility on the business model through that audit experience, it still takes an element of brave to not just talk about setting up a business, but actually do it. So where did where did you get the confidence, the leap of faith?
I think it's, my wife will say it as well. She said that I'm high risk, but I'm not high risk. I just spend a lot of time thinking about it. So you've kind of mitigated anything you think that's risk. And I remember sitting in the box room that you'd have at the house. And it was like, right, how many clients do you need to get to pay the mortgage? And where can I find them? And can I do it while I'm still in employment and all this sort of thing? And it was pretty much like that. that's how it happened. And I've spoken to countless people who've started businesses where we've had the same conversation. It's like, how much do you need to just pay the bills? And then after that comes the big ideas and the plan, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So when you did that calculation, did you do that while you were still working as an accountant? Were you already setting up the business on the side and winning clients? And how did you manage that?
Yeah, so that was a bizarre translation, that one. It was like, right, I like the MSP space, but I'm an accountant. So what do I know about, fixing anyone's computer or any of those things, which is what it was, what the conversation was in those days. I've got a broken computer. How do I fix it? However, business partner, Peter, he did have an IT background,
And how did you guys know each other?
So it was kind of like it's a friend of a friend type of situation, which I think where a lot of businesses came from a pint in a pub somewhere. That's how it kind of evolved.
We can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And was he? What was Peter's circumstances at the time? Was he also already thinking about doing something in the MSP space, or did you plant the seed there?
No, weirdly enough, he had just started his own IT consultancy business as well. And another chap working from kind of like the box room at his house, it was like running things from there and finding clients, people he'd met in the past, the black book to locate who I can help and when. That's how it started.
Okay. And then, we're not managed service provider specialists, and I imagine the world's changed a lot in the last 20 years. One of the things you associate with that sector is it's quite sticky in terms of customer base, which is beautiful once you've got the customers. But as you're setting out to win customers with no track record, never having done this, how did you... That's a two-part. How did you persuade people to be your first clients? And B, how did you get the confidence that you were going to be able to persuade people to be your first clients?
Yeah, I think it's probably fair to say that I was the door knocker in the early days. So one of the tactics that I had, and I mean, this is definitely Del Boy as well, isn't it? Walk straight into a business. What problems have you got your IT? I'll fix it here and now. I'll just fix whatever's wrong. I'll figure it out for you. No charge. But what I'd like you to do is call us next time you've got a problem. Okay. And there's probably a number of clients we still have today that were
That's how you
a victim of that sales tactic, if you want to put it that way.
A beneficiary of that.
Yeah, beneficiary, is it? Yeah. So, and definitely there's clients we've got on our books now who work with us to this day who were before we started the company.
Right, okay. Yeah. Okay, wow. And was it a very different landscape then? Were you taking clients from other IT managed service providers, or did people not have that in place then?
That just wasn't heard of. Okay. So, the size that the clients that we talked to, it was all Northeast because I was door knocking. So every business I was walking into could make a really fast decision. The owner was quite often sitting somewhere near reception and could hear what was going on, and it was all immediate business back then. There was no taking them off another provider. There was no little cloud services. This was 2006, If people had servers stuck underneath desks in cupboards and things like that,
I'm trying to imagine what we would think now if reception called up to say there's somebody you don't know at reception who says, have you got anything wrong with IT that needs looking at?
You would think data breach, right? You'd be like, hack attempt is what this is.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, a nice chap sent us a bar of chocolate to go with a letter about, whether we want to change providers. So that was as close to door knocking as we've had for a little while.
You're missing the strapline. There must be a strapline around the chocolate.
There might have been, but I think the chocolate.
Let's be sweet together.
The chocolate got given to my daughter, and I'm not sure I read the letter, but yeah, the chocolate was appreciated.
I had sent out mushy peas where I had, don't come after me, bachelors, I think it was, but I'd put like ITC logos over it on it, and it was about like getting mushy together type of thing, and so all that sort of stuff.
So when was the first point where you thought, this is working, we've got a bit of traction here?
I would probably say for the first 10 years, which is a long time, we had no clue on what the heck we were doing. There wasn't as strong a plan as you have today, and probably had since about 2012, 2013, 2014 was where you really started to go, what are we doing? Because it was just the same in, day out. You were run ragged. There was probably like 10 people working there, and it's that kind of £1 million ceiling where you're stuck.
And what size clients were you servicing at this point?
Exactly the same size as we service now. It's
okay.
a bit of all sorts of things. Not a lot of over 500 seats, but yeah, a bit of all sorts. One person business to a few hundred. Yeah.
So 10 years in, what size are you? About 1 million, you say, turnover-wise?
Yeah.
What changed?
The plan was what changed. I always remember the debates with Peter. I was like, taking on an employee, it's such a risky thing, isn't it? You're risking their livelihood, their future, their home, their family. There's a lot of pain comes from, failing when you've got an employee base there as well. So there's a lot to keep you awake at night. But really, it was like the IT landscape changed as well. You were like, right, there's cloud, and this is another thing to learn. And then the clients were changing, and there was more to learn. And you were like, I need more people to deal with the knowledge, because you're running a business, you're finding customers, you're selling things, you're servicing the customers. You just can't
stay on top of the technology developments and all the different technology stacks and what have you. So that was the catalyst for thinking about, we need to grow the team now.
And the end goal. It was like, okay, this has been a lot of fun, because it is when it's in your 20s and your early 30s, and it's hand to mouth and all this sort of thing. And then you're like, hold on for a second here. What's the exit plan? Where are we going to?
And by that point, how would you guys divide responsibilities between the two of you? What were the respective areas of focus?
It utterly switched. So
Chief door knocking officer.
Yeah, it utterly switched. So I kind of headed up the technical side. So I was the problem solver and the person implementing the tech everywhere. And Peter switched to the sales role.
Okay.
And
how did that come about? Because you came to it without a technical background. So how did you get to the point where those roles switched over?
It's probably my only superpower, is to figure something out. That was the thing.
It's a good superpower to have.
Yeah. Just a puzzle, just love a puzzle. So everything is just, you do find in the technical world, people go to a technical solution and a complicated problem, or a complicated cause to a problem. And it's not like that. It's actually probably a lot simpler than a lot of people make it out to be. So simplicity wrapped around it is a good way to go forward. Yeah.
And you mentioned that the sort of the changing landscape, cloud becoming much more of a prevalent term, and an opportunity for the business to scale. But how would you guys manage to, I guess, sort of stay sane, survive, cooperate with each other for 10 years without having a plan or a sort of an end goal in mind?
It's nice that you think we stayed sane during that.
Seemed the right thing to say.
But I wouldn't say, whilst you can solve a problem, there's no genius, it's just hard work all the way through it. And building it to where it is now has just been a lot of grit, but a lot of plan. It's just every single week, every single month, what's next? What's just that little bit extra? And I've not done any of the, stratospheric growth that some of your previous people on the show have done. It's just steady away, 15, 20%, all kind of organic all the way through, word of mouth.
There's plenty of people that we know that would very happily take 15, 20% growth at the moment. So it's not to be sniffed at.
No, it gets a bigger number every year.
I know two people.
It's a tougher target to hit every single year, but this kind of brings us to the point where you're at BGF and you're like, right, what is next?
You've skipped over 10 years there, haven't you? You've decided to create a plan.
Yeah.
And what was the plan? Was it to increase the technology stack, get more expertise? Was there a sales plan to go with that and a people plan to go with that? And can you remember sitting down to do that together?
Very much so. So it was, from when you figured out that £1 million bracket, that the next place where you had a headache was probably the 2.5, 3 million place. And it's really easy in MSP. For every million, you've normally got 10 people working inside the business, right? So
Nice, neat maths.
yeah, it is. Yeah. And you've got 25 people there under the same flat management structure. So you've got, in our case, 2 people running 25 people. It's chaos again. And you've got to insert that management team in there. But that growth plan is like, how many new clients do we need to find every single month? Yeah. And all of those numbers trickle down from there. You know how many calls you're going to get, how many tickets, how many problems you got to resolve, how many people you need to employ to be able to achieve that. And finding a person, as you well know, Player West, takes months to get the right candidate. You've got to find the management to put in there, that middle management tier. And then you find that you're really, really bad at that. And you have no idea what you're doing. And you can't pick the right people for love nor money. And you've got churn all over the place, which can affect quality and standards, and stress levels are
when you
right up high.
When you look back now, what was it you were getting wrong in trying to select those people or get that in place?
I think it was that you didn't have that clearly defined mission, for sure. So people weren't sure what they were coming into work for. When it was 10 people, it was just a lot of fun, and it was a community of people working together. And then when it's 25 people, there's people in the business who don't talk to each other, So how do you reunify that group of people? And it's got to be towards the common goal. What are we trying to achieve? And for the client, for us, and for the people who are working there,
When you guys were working through all of that, were you able to get solutions to these questions just by working in it as a pair, or did you go externally for any advice? Any sort of trusted people who you thought you could go to and get their input?
We went externally for advice probably about 1.5 years, 2 years ago.
Okay.
And when we figured out the dynamic when we were at 25 people, then growth started to happen again.
So you did get that right in the end. You got the right people in that management layer, and it started working, and you found you could scale from there.
That's right.
And you said something around like, but having an agreed a plan, an outcome, a goal, whatever it was. What did you decide upon at that stage? What was the message to everybody saying this is what we're going to shoot for?
Yeah. So just lay out what shape you want the business to look like, and in 3 years, in 7 years, in 10 years. Just let them know where you're trying to get to, but lay out a future as well. It's not everyone wants to change their role, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with being really good at what you do now, and you should feel rewarded for that. You're absolutely an important part of the business. And then there's people who have ambition and want to learn and move around the organization, and you should support that as well, and let that be a thing they can achieve. Yeah. And then it starts to almost show itself in benefits as well, isn't it? It's like, okay, then let's bring in life insurance and health insurance, and then look after their kids, and then let them go to the opticians and the dentists, and all this sort of thing starts playing into it. And they're really tiny parts of it. Yeah. It is about the electricity in the building when you walk in is the important part. Yeah.
Good. So then you went external for some advice 18 months, 2 years ago. And what prompted that? Because it sounds like you've got the structure in place. It's working. It's scaling. What made you think we need to go and speak to somebody to get some input?
Well, what you've got is a whole load of people that you've homegrown as managers. We didn't buy in expertise for people who have been there and done it before. you know, I think over 50% of the people at ITC were at some stage an apprentice, you know, so have come through that level of learning. We've got you know, apprentices with us who have been there a decade now, you know. So our middle management, and still me, have no idea how to create that culture and how to set it. And you know, you can be someone who turns to podcasts to listen to these things and read books and all this sort of thing, but I'm a, you know, figure it out type of guy. But someone who works with me, Adam, you know, pointed out, oh, this could be a good platform. And I love it when someone brings something to us. I was like, yeah, okay, that is a good platform. We explored it. And it really is about working on culture. So we consult with them. They're part of our business all of the time, every month. You know, there's like, you know, focus groups. They run focus groups to figure out, you know, what we're lacking and what we're not hearing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, culture events and things like that as well.
Okay, fantastic. And then coming up to present day, what led you to raise the investment from BGF? And at that point, where was the business at that stage when you first had the conversation with BGF and you were saying, you know, do you want to invest? What were they investing in at that point?
Yeah, so BGF have got I do always say they're kind of like a warm and fuzzy private equity group. You know, they're a minority investor. They're there to support you. But this also said, the people inside BGF, there's a whole load of skill and talent to leverage, you know, who have come from a corporate background, who know what your next stage of your journey is, what's around the corner, and can really help safeguard you in getting to that place as well. You know, it comes with a lot of admin.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you know, let's have everything audited and let's get, you know, more formal on our ESG and all these sorts of things. But it's also a really good set of exercises with BGF. And, you know, we were collecting cash at this time, which is a nice place to be, isn't it? And, you know, I'm like, right, what we really want to do is talk to other MSPs that are in our area who are at the pain points we were at, where the point where, you know, I don't mind saying it, when we were 25 people, we went to heads of terms because I did not enjoy that journey one piece.
Just to sell the business.
Yes. It was not a lot of fun. I could.
So
clearly not come back.
what wasn't fun?
The people element was really difficult. You know, learning how to go from that small group of friends to this organization where you're trying to get everyone swimming in the same direction, you know, under that integrity, trust, communication. We talk about it a lot at our place. That was a real headache. Yeah, it's just really challenging.
And that's because, you know, understandably, it's easy to say in retrospect, oh, we got a few hires wrong, but the reality of living through those wrong hires in a 25-person team can be pretty painful if things are, you know, clients are getting upset, balls are being dropped there, staff are getting upset. It can be difficult to manage your way through that.
Because you can't be everywhere.
Yeah.
And you've got this unobtainable expectation to quality, you know, because this is you. You know, this is everything that you've done type of thing. And now you've got to get that ethos into a wider team of people who, I didn't even realize it when we were figuring out, just weren't focused on the same thing, the same mission as you had, you know?
And you talked about, I think, having some external help to sort of get the team into a place where that there was an alignment around what the plan was, what the future looked like. Can you remember how they sort of broke that message down and how they created engagement around it? Because I imagine there's lots of people who listen to this who sit in businesses of similar size who are going through similar challenges and scratching their heads as to, well, you know, we sort of know what we want and we sort of know what, but we can't quite get from where we are now to what we want to be. Can you remember how they broke it down?
it wouldn't be a platform that I had chosen if it wasn't because it had a huge amount of data attached to it. I'm data daft is the thing. It's like there's no decision made without the data. You know, you need to be 55% sure and the rest is intuition, right? But that's more sure than not, right? And so we picked the Harrison assessment.
Okay.
If you've come across this before, and there's lots of things which are, you know, classify you as an animal and classify you as a color. Harrison assessment doesn't do any of those things, but it gives you this grid of characteristics, and every single person that you go into it, it tells you about the individual, and then we get coached off that data to refine our management style from us to that one person. So we understand what will be well received by them and what won't. We don't get it right all of the time, but it's better than not having the data.
It's really powerful, yeah.
It is, yeah. And when we've used Blair West as well, those candidates have gone through that process. We call it a job success formula. To, you know, when they fill out their questionnaires, when they're applying with us, you've got this, will you fit the role, but will you also fit us?
Yeah. Interesting. I think, you know, we deliver similar things for a lot of clients in processes if they don't have a system that they already use. And we always say, you know, that it's not to give a yes or a no on a candidate. It is to see how they're going to fit into the culture. I always think with any of those kind of psychometric profiling tools, understanding how you relate to each other as a management team or as a wider business, understanding other people's drivers and behaviours is just as important, as even more so than understanding your own.
Yeah. And absolutely fitting that role. There's not, you know, when people apply for a job, you know, at any level, it could be an almost like desperation thing. It's like, you know, there's redundancy or there's an unexpected event or change in geography has took me to another place and I need a job really, really quickly, you know. And they're there to sell themselves when they're in an interview. They want you to take them on, but do they actually want the role? And if they're in that seat, are they going to be a good fit for it? You know, because as you guys know, no one wants to make a mishire, right? It's a really expensive thing to do. You know, all the investment in training and induction and all that, and the time lost. The time is something you can never recoup. You can recoup a margin on a bad deal, but you can't recoup the time you've lost in inducting someone into your family.
We've made one or two small missteps hiring the team. Yeah. You think we probably wouldn't, but yeah, we're guilty of that as well.
No one's perfect.
Indeed. So BGF, were they the only investor you spoke to then? And for anybody who's not aware, BGF, Business Growth Fund, probably by deal volume, number of people, number of offices, are the largest PE investor in the UK. Like you say, that I won't use the language you use, but they've got because they're an important client of ours, and they might not like to be described like that, but they're seen as being very management team friendly and supportive and minority stakes. So were they the only one you spoke to, or did you speak to a wider pool of investors?
I'm not sure if they even know this actually, but no, we put it all about town. At the time, yeah, it was like let's see what a deal looks like from every which way, you know. We got what I would call like straw man places and one heads of terms on trade sales, but I could not get past the thing of it feeling like a funeral.
Okay,
you know,
yeah. Interesting.
You'd got to this place and you'd said to the whole team probably. You know, we normally do those calls around about November, December to say what the next year is going to look like, and then reiterate it kind of now, midway through the year, and do a little bit of report on how, you know, first 6 months of the calendar went. And we just said in November, right, this is what we're going to do, and I'd talked about the acquisition plan. We've got this money in the bank, and a really friendly bank that was super keen to assist us as well. And then there was this thing of, do we really know what we're doing? Is BGF a good, should we just sell out because, the money's really good, and is AI going to, annihilate us all, and all this sort of thing. And we went to that straw man, heads terms with two of them, not at the same time, in that first 6 months. And it just felt like a funeral. And I felt like I'd been lying to people. We're going to do this thing, and then actually we're not going to do this thing. A different name above the door and all that sort of thing didn't feel good.
It's an interesting reflection. Sorry to cut across, but we see, as you know, most of our clients are private equity investors, and we're often working with them ahead of a deal, and they regularly miss out to trade. It always strikes me as curious that it's such a different route for the vendor. To sell to trade is not necessarily a funeral, but you are passing the business over and probably walking away. Going with PE is for better or worse, a really exciting, growth, demanding journey with really fun and exciting, with a potential big reward. And it would always seem to me is that you make a decision on what you want to do with the next 3 to 5 years of your life, and then decide on the route. But it seems that often, there's lots of dual track processes where the vendor is seemingly ambivalent about which route it's going to be until they see the numbers on the page.
Yeah. Because you don't know what it's going to look like until the deal's on the table. And you've got one route where you sell to trade, and you've got all your money in 6 months, and you're sitting on a beach somewhere in 12. Or you've got this other side where your pay gets cut, and it's a really tough journey for the next 3-5 years, and you've got a lot of things to do, and and someone to report to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But on the flip side, it depends what you're driven by. Yeah. So the drive was, I really fancy doing this integration piece. There's this really strong story about picking another MSP that's in that pain spot and then bringing them in, and the flexibility I can have around a deal like that for that other business owner. Yeah. Come on the journey, don't come on the journey, do whatever you want. And you will know what you want if you've got your exit in mind.
Yeah.
If you have your beach house picked out, then it's a trade sale is what you're looking for. But if you're not sure, then it's because your journey is probably not done.
Yeah. Interesting. So when you spoke to BGF and other parties, you were saying, we think we've got loads of lessons learned over the last 20 years. We know the pain points of scaling to this point. We know it's a fragmented market, and there's people out there going through those exact same pain points right at the moment. So we're really confident we can offer them a lot. So do you want to back us to go and acquire some other businesses, integrate them, and make a larger group?
Yeah. And it's not easy doing a deal like that with anyone. And BGF, they ask a lot of probing questions.
Yeah.
And you don't know what the future is.
Yeah.
There's a possibility they might.
Yeah.
Yeah. But leverage, getting in with a private equity group, leverage that for as much as you can.
Yeah. And what's that been like then? Because just yesterday I had a conversation with a client of ours who is thinking about a private equity transaction alongside a trade route, and they said they've not got any experience of working with PE before, and said, what I don't want is some guys in suits in London looking at a spreadsheet telling me how to run my business. And we, are lucky enough to work with private equity investors a lot who are not like that. But what's been your lived experience post-transaction of what it is like to have a private equity party on board?
I think I'm probably still learning it and finding my feet a little bit as well. Get inside the organization, find the people that are in there, find what value you can leverage from them as well, because they have invested in a lot of businesses inside the UK. So let's get an introduction going to those.
Yeah.
You know, it's where can you sort of trade within the portfolio, so to speak, or the BGF family in this case, but also because of what you do, bring an actual element of continuity and security to those businesses as well. You know, one of the major threat factors is a cyber attack. You know, we've got some really strong products and a strong offering. You know, we can help secure an asset to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Okay. We have heard anecdotally actually that private equity invested businesses who've just done a lot of press about having been invested or can be a particular threat.
The impersonation attacks on me went through the roof
Really?
within weeks.
And describe what an impersonation attack looks and feels like.
Everyone's had one at some point where you're a director, you may or may not know it, but an email from you going to your accounts team with your name at the top. It's not your email address behind it. That's the really unsophisticated one, right? I'm stuck out on a golf course. Can you transfer us like $2,000, please, just to pay for XYZ or, this type of thing. Or there's an invoice attached and they've sent it to you, this needs paid. How have you not done this already? So it comes with that onus of pressure for someone. Oh my God, I'm getting told off. I better pay this bill really quickly. That's a crude attempt at impersonation. Yeah.
So that went through the roof. So you do have a lot to offer the BGF portfolio there, saying, you might be you're invested and it's been in the press, an additional threat, so you can help there.
Luckily, we just see impersonation attacks as a summary, not as something that lands in the mailbox, but it was commented on, yeah.
Okay. And you talked about having spoken to different profiles of investor. Is it as simple to characterize BGF's minority investment as an ability for you to retain sufficient independence about what happens post-transaction, and that felt more in line with how you wanted to feel about having an investor on board?
Yeah. So we had one where it was up at, they were acquiring 70%, and everyone propositions it as this, you de-risking, I didn't de-risk anything. In fact, it got worse for me. There was more risk involved in it, but, they're there to support the vision of what it is that you wanted to achieve. From that going forward. So yeah, they're a minority investor. That's all BGF really do. And they're quite well set up to help with that as well.
Okay. And what you talked about kind of you and your founder, a pretty small team together as a board. What's it been like post-investment to expand your board team and have more people sat on that table? How's that felt?
I wouldn't say it's definitely come with its challenges. This is the 25 seat thing relived, So what you've got now is, for people who don't know us, we've took on a C-suite, which is, our service desk, who was already a person inside our business, our revenue officer, who was a recruit through Blair West, and also our CFO as well. So those two, the latter of those two, were fresh faces, and what you're doing is leveraging their skills to take a load off your plate, but they've got to learn your sector. The thing of finding anyone from our sector is just about non-existent. That's not going to happen. And you're going through the 25-seat problem again, where you're just aligning on values and everyone else needs to adjust to this new tier of management in between, It's a lot of fun figuring it out. Yeah. Thankfully, it's not the type of pain it was when it was 25 people.
Okay. So
it's easier. It's easier. And
why is it easier?
Because you're not home growing them. You've purchased in the maturity level this time round. Whereas before you were taking people who were really well aligned with your mission, although you didn't know it was your mission at the time.
Yeah.
And you were teaching them a load of things, and that takes a load of time to get to that place as well. Yeah.
And then, so post-acquisition, post-investment rather, plan is to find some targets. You've already touched on, you said that's difficult, it's tough. There's lots of people trying to do that. How are you approaching that? Is that a key part of your job now? Are you back to chief door knocker?
It's I am it's right at the project plan where it's now. I've meant to have started it this month, and I've kind of built the framework but not really started it.
It's
And
okay. There's still a couple of weeks of July left. It's all right. It's not,
Yeah,
it's not
no,
a lost
yeah.
cause yet.
Yeah, totally. We've got the whole little system for the journey built in HubSpot. Well, literally, I am going to treat it like a marketing campaign, but really, it's just a thing about keeping me on track as to where I'm at with various conversations with different businesses. And I know quite a few MSPs, in the area and around the UK. And I think I could quite confidently say there's not a lot of them that are ready at this point. But when the time comes, hopefully they'll think of me rather than some horrible big trade or nasty private equity company with sharp teeth.
And then, so that it's been fascinating hearing about the business. So dealing with you and your leadership style and the high growth leadership, how have you evolved as a leader from, when you started and when you say, let's say when you had 10 people, how's your leadership style changed? Has it changed from then until now?
Yeah, it's probably a bit more refined than what it was back in the day. You've learned to moderate what you say a lot more and behave better, and always apply it. There's always respectful. You're respectful of everyone that you work with. Everyone has it tough. No one has it easy. And just life's not easy. It's everything's difficult to get through, but you can have a lot of fun doing it. There can be a lot of energy, the buzz in the building when you come in, enjoying turning up for your role every day is a thing. And there's a reason why I walk through the door at 6:30, 7 a.m. every day and leave at the same time every day. There's a reason for that. I enjoy doing what we're doing. Definitely not a good leader from my point of view. I am best in small rooms with small crowds of people, ideally a desert island where there's no one, but surround yourself with the people who are good leaders and who can really pass the message on.
So you talked about as the businesses have evolved, people who've been trainees grown into different roles in the organisation, but more latterly you've then brought in more senior expertise in the hires that have come sort of post-investment. Is it a different exercise leading, coaching, managing those senior external hires than it was dealing with the people that have been promoted through the business?
Yeah, it has. This is like dealing with BGF as well, right? So you get someone, imposter syndrome, isn't it? It's that you get someone in and you're like, they know more than me. I should listen to what they have to say and do exactly that. And the fact is, when you get behind the scenes of it, most people don't. It really is a collective effort, and no one knows this business and this sector more than
You've been living it for the last 20 years.
You know what you need to do to make this work. So it's great to have all this, the safeguarding knowledge and all of the learning that's come from running, sales teams of 50 people and all this type of thing coming into our little, what was 4 group at the time, but is now much larger. There's no way we could grow beyond this point without having it. I'm sure of that.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And the I mean, I can't remember what episode of this we're up to now, but I think you're the first person to say, I'm not a good leader.
Definitely not.
We're nearly double figures.
Yeah. Which is very self-aware, admirably so. So, and you said you surround yourself with people who are. So do you consciously think about that? Is your leadership style, I'm sure you're better than you're giving yourself credit for, but is it natural? Are you just being you, or are you consciously managing, I'm going to follow this framework today, or I've got a leader meeting here, I know that I need to cover the following points?
Just being you is the right thing to be, or else it's just going to zap your energy being anything else. And I've been through that, where you try to hide it and be something else and then go, ultimately it won't work for you long term. So,
but just delving in, have you seen your happy space, and I know you're it was tongue in cheek, but as on a desert island on your own, to lead effectively, you can't do that. You can't lock yourself away. So you must be thinking, I want to just go and do this, but actually I'm going to have to go and, it's not have to. The right thing for the business is for me to go and be, with the people and lead.
Yeah, it is. There's a wider mission that changes your mindset. And it's the success that your clients get because they partner with you, because of the things that you can do for them. It's watching the people that you work with get married and have kids and, buy different cars and move house. And it's all of those things that change it for you, It's the flip from either being a lone consultant, going from job to job to job, which I quite enjoy, or, running the team and not going anywhere near the stuff that you really liked because you need the team to do it. The reward shifts over time, and that's what compels you to do it. But I don't mind the getting up and speaking now. I did probably 3 years ago, but I don't mind talking in front of a crowd now. I always say, you go up on stage and you say something, and then I was like, they come off and they were like, I don't know how it went. And they were like, what do you think of the audience reaction? Things like that. And I was like, I actually don't remember anyone being there in the room. I just got up and said the stuff I wanted to run through, and that was it.
I was going to ask, actually, are there elements of the role, you've touched on one there, are there elements of the role that you really, this is the role of being CEO, that you enjoy, and elements that you enjoy less? Where is your happy space within the role?
I don't think there's anything. There's always this, if you go to the negative part first, there's always challenges around, things change for people. They can be aligned, they can be not aligned. And it's always difficult to deal with individuals that might have an issue or clients that have issues. It's everywhere, isn't it? It's like the skeleton in the cupboard. It's like always deal with the things you're avoiding first, because that way you sleep better at night. But after that, and you keep that list to an absolute minimum because you're dealing with it all of the time. So nip it in the bud straight away, and it's dealt with and it's done. And then everything else is just roses, isn't it? Everything else is just fun.
That feels so much easier after that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And then we've talked about kind of where the platform you took on from a culture perspective, and you didn't take a lot of external input for your learning and development. This is you as a leader. You said you're a figure it out kind of guy at heart. Is that an accurate assessment as I've played it back there? Do you read a lot about leadership styles? Do you listen to a lot of podcasts, other than this one, of course? Do you consciously try to manage your own development? And obviously, you came up what sounds like a very sharp curve in terms of technical knowledge very quickly. Have you done the same from a leadership and business perspective?
Yeah, pretty much so. Yeah, it's a whole new set of skills that you had to force into your head. And I was quite skeptical, even like with the Harrison assessment stuff at the start. I was read it all online, got aligned with a great person who introduces you to that. It's like, hello to Trevor out there. You know, they do great work, and I was probably quite against it. You know, sitting there, folded, not sure about this. It's all very, you know, touchy feely. You know, whereas you're kind of like British, just get your collar done, get on with it, stuff. You know. But in actual fact, it lets you realize what the real nuances are of making, you know, as many people as possible happy. Yeah. And the next landscapes for this as well is that whilst you've done this internally, I've been talking for the last year about this needs to come to our clients as well. It's like if you say the people on the service desk and the people who answer the phone, our partner care team, fabulous people, and our account management team, are they speaking to the right people at our place? You know, what data could we collect from the interactions we have with our clients that allow us to change our workflows as to who deals with that client? I was at that would be quite a revolutionary change in client impression.
Interesting. And then, I mean, this is about the business as much as yourself. You've talked a lot about culture and having realigned now. Clearly, the service to your clients is really, really important to you. You've scaled to 7 million turnover now, and you know a lot of managed service providers do get stuck at the kind of 1 million mark. So, what do you think, from a business and from a culture perspective, has allowed you to continue growing at that rate every year?
You know, there is, everyone carries, you know, you hate the phrase, it's like a KPI. I need to come up with a different name for a KPI, don't you? But ultimately, you set the vision on where you want to get to. And this is what happens to everyone when you get there. But unless there's some responsibility handed to every single person inside your business, you're not going to move the dial one bit, you know? So there is significant time, effort, money goes into how do we, I call it like educating businesses in the region that we exist. There's a lot of companies out there just have never even heard of us, you know, and we can really help change things for them, you know, align them with the right service desk people, the right, you know, account managers, you know, really help progress things for their business and keep them safe as well.
I had a question about thinking sort of longer term. So when you get involved in an external investor, and as we've talked about, BGF have some different characteristics to other mid-market majority investors, in so much it's maybe a little bit more patient, maybe a little bit medium long term. But most people, I guess, would associate a private equity investment cycle with having an end point, you know, a turnover, an EBITDA metric, a multiple, and some sort of return, some sort of exit value. How important is it for you individually and for the team more broadly to have a view on what the business is aiming for beyond a BGF investment cycle?
Yeah, that's part of the narrative, and one that's come into the wider business later on. You know, I can't ultimately, you can't say where your business is going to end up in, you know, 7 years time. I can say definitively where we're going to be in 3 and 5, you know, and where BGF is, you know, they have it's kind of almost, again, soft and fluffy, you see, BGF, like a soft end date. This is where,
soft and flexible.
Soft and flexible. This is where there's some dividends introduced beyond this date, because they need to get a return at this point, and that's what they've promised the fund and all the rest of it. I would never ever, I would always advise never work to that date, you know, because you don't want there to be a chance that you're going to overshoot that. And the great thing with BGF is that kind of I get to call when that date is, not if it goes beyond them, it might be them, but I get to call when that date is. So we want to aim earlier, but I'm still fairly placing it in with, you know, the C level that's in the business, with the management, with the whole company. What do you want to happen? And by the time 5 years is up, I've had a really good crack at it, you know. And you know, I hope that we've got another 50 people that we've purchased and absorbed into the family, you know, and that makes us a lot larger, but we've also hopefully enjoyed some growth along that way as well. So it kind of paints a picture of that we're sitting at like 125 people by then,
which would be
in
about
4 years time.
doubling the business. Would that be? Yeah.
Pretty much doubling the size of the business. You know, 3 years would be great. 4 years to 5 is probably more realistic. And leaving it to everyone as to what they want to happen, and them giving me the mandate. What do you want me to do? Do you want to become part of a larger MSP around the UK, which is that trade sale? Or do you guys figure that you can go again and find another PE group, and you know, if we're all enjoying it, we'll do it again?
Okay. And you're open to, you think you might be open-minded?
I'll let them decide at that point. You know, it won't be my decision alone.
Just thinking, going back to the sort of the guys that have joined post-investment to lead on finance and lead on sales, you talked about buying in skill sets that have been honed in different environments and bringing them into your business to enable growth. But you also, I think, used an expression that they've not worked in MSP previously, so they've got to learn the business model. When we speak either to business owners or CEOs, there's, I guess, a nervousness and excitement that's associated with bringing those types of people in, because you know you're going to benefit from some skills, experience, expertise that you don't have, but it's potentially a big cost, big investment, and there's maybe a bit of a lead time before they can really add the value.
Yeah.
So how have you got comfortable, I guess, sort of with that risk reward ratio, easy for me to say, about bringing those people in and the benefit that they'll provide medium term rather than immediately?
And I know there's going to be bed-in time. I was already happy with that. I knew it was there. And I knew that was going to hit the bottom line for a little bit, especially seeing as we're building, you know, a marketing and a sales engine to create that awareness that we exist. And the results of that is going to take 2 years to see anything off the back of, you know. But at ITC, we do it our way, not anyone else's way. It's great to be in all these MSP forums, and we're hearing how the competition take on certain challenges, but that's just data. Just because another company does it that way, it doesn't mean we're going to do it that way. So I didn't want someone from our sector, because they're going to come with a preconception of maybe it's what worked, maybe it's what doesn't, you know, maybe there was other factors that moved it to that place, but we'll figure it out. We don't need to be told what to do. We'll find our way.
And when you spend a little bit of time with that competitor set, I mean, I guess we've all got a bit of a curious eye as to what other people are doing in the space, how they're growing, why they're being successful. Are there little bits that you can magpie from that competitor set, or does it more often than not give you confidence that the way that you're doing it maintains your competitive advantage?
Data daft, remember, as well, right? So I collect information on all of the competitors, probably a lot more than the average bear does. You know, it's like I roam around collecting everything. So I keep what I think is their strategy from what I hear from clients that we bring on board, and from employees that might have shifted shape. Or I don't ask any hard questions in there. I don't, you know, nothing below the belt. But trawling the net and hearing what they're saying, running down their financials, I can read a balance sheet like no one's business, you know. So it's and it's a strange market right at this time. You've got a lot of competition that's grown up really quickly and set their eyes on different markets and different places. And you've got a lot of competition that are going through the same pain that we've been through. And I'm still firmly of the belief that if we unify that, if we merge those efforts for people who are going through pain, we can accelerate like mutual growth.
Okay. You've touched on so many different areas, which a lot of our clients and hopefully some people listening to this podcast are interested in. So kind of the process of taking on money, new hires post-investment and leadership of new areas, letting go of those areas and trusting those people, giving them the bedding time that they need. Another thing, particularly people-focused businesses, service businesses, when they're taking on external investment, people worry about the culture, and the lazy assumption is that it's going to be KPI to death, data daft. Loves a KPI anyway, but you wish they had a different word for it, but you've got enough. So I dare say they won't feel a lot of change there. But I just wondered whether the wider team outside of the board, whether you think there's been any discernible difference in their life and their work patterns and in the culture of the business since the investment.
It's a good question. We've got our next pulse surveys are coming up soon to see how people are feeling. So I'll integrate some questions about that. To see how they feel, sort of, 7-8 months in, really into it now, or 9 months in, and we'll get a gauge on that as well. But I wouldn't say that I don't talk to everyone inside the business all of the time, but we have frequent one-to-ones with a structure we've just reinforced and changed quite recently. It all come together. How do we talk to the people in our group, and what information do we collect, and how are they feeling, and all this sort of thing. And hopefully we're getting an ever improving heartbeat of what's going on. It is, everything is about structure and process and efficiency for growth, and managing people inside that is just as important. It's all instrumental to what's going to happen.
And then another issue which lots of our clients talk to us a lot about, and I'm interested in your perspective, is hybrid working and work-life balance. And you touched on earlier, and
Work-life balance.
well, yeah, we know this anyway, but we touched on earlier that you're in at 6:30, leave at a similar time in the evening. How do the rest of your team feel about that? Is that it's different for an owner of a business? Is that something you expect from your wider team as well? Is that the culture at ITC? And how does that all work with expectations about hybrid working? And
COVID was the instigator for all of this, wasn't it? And we were already in that mindset of good talent could be anywhere. And 99% of what we do is remote. So why do we need to have someone inside the building? And we ran with that notion just before COVID and during COVID because it was ideal. But then actually we're like, people really enjoy being together. So and even the question now inside the business is, how do we get more people on the same floor? It's an entirely open plan office. It's like I sit with everyone else. There's no, glass room where anyone's segregated unless you're in a meeting room. Everyone sits with everyone, and that way you feel what the organization's doing. And we know that's probably going to come with a building move as well at some point. And I think we're going to keep that format. I think we're going to keep everyone together. Just on the one big floor. We just need to find a bigger building for it. I think it's quite important to us.
Yeah. And on that work-life balance point, you joked there, but you're pretty dedicated to work. How does that affect culture and the wider business?
Well, we have, I don't think we could sit everyone we employ in our building right now. So there's quite a bit of hybrid working already. Look, it cuts down on your commute time. You get a better work-life balance. As long as you've got a good, respectable space to work at home where you can have some privacy, and and internally it's cameras on, or so we know what's happening when we're having calls and things like that. But there's nothing wrong with people working at home because of that work-life balance. And we've got good tools and systems to make sure that people are there and present, and you've got to maintain that. But it does need to be hybrid. Full-time remote is quite challenging because you don't always blend with the people that you're working with. And as much as you can have a Teams call, when that group gets to 15 and 20 people in a team, someone's going to be drowned out and disappear in the background. Right. But it did come up in our most recent focus group as well, where they were asking more for flexible time as it comes around. And we kind of parked that one a little bit, and we recognize that we're thinking about it, but our customers wake up at 8 a.m. and tend to go home around about 5ish, and we need a certain number of hours available during those times, so the flexibility around the clock and on different days might be challenging, but we've got part-time people as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Well, I think it is time for our final killer question, which is...
We need a better much like we're talking about KPIs, we need a better name for a killer question.
I think it builds it up to be more than it is. But anyway, just interested, high growth leadership, you've founded and led a growth business for 20 years now through various different cycles and pain points, all the way through to private equity exit. If you could talk to Chris 20 years ago, what would be the one piece of advice you would give yourself setting out on that journey? It's
probably the same advice I give myself in sort of 2014-ish. What the heck are you doing, fella? Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, you're focused on family and fun and enjoying everything, and all of it was a lot of fun back then. But in actual fact, at some point or another, your knees are going to hurt and your hair's probably going to fall out, and you're going to need an exit plan. And what does that exit plan want to be? Who do you want to be when you get to the end of your working life? And when is your working life going to end? That's really the question. If I had told myself that, maybe it's 24 rather than waiting until I was 34 to do it, things might have been a little bit more accelerated from you.
So having a plan, or having at least an idea of where you want to get to, rather than just...
There was always an ambition, but it was an unfocused ambition.
Maybe it's an easier question to answer when you're 34 rather than 24, though. You maybe know a little bit more about yourself.
It is, yeah. And I was probably a little bit more of a wildcat at that age as well, than, when you settle down a little bit later on. But yeah, I kind of really wish I had that same understanding of, what do you need to stop? And if you stop, what are you going to do when you stop? Because I can't answer that question. And that's what made the trade sale feel a little bit like a funeral. It was like, okay, if I'm not turning up to work, what am I doing? I am not going to be good sitting on a sofa watching the telly for the rest of your days. I'm going to need something to crack on with.
Well, you might not get a TV signal on a desert island, so that's
not
an option anyway.
Yeah, I'll make a TV. I'll do those things, yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much for coming on, talk all that fascinating, and obviously we wish you all the very best of luck with the buy and build and the future, and hopefully next time you're sitting in those exit discussions, it feels like a celebration and not a funeral.
Yes. I very much hope so. I'll pass it on to good caretakers, internal ones.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Cheers.